Hello and welcome to a millinery hat making live stream. Hopefully the audio is working. We'll just test that all out. I've got some background music going. Hopefully that's all at the right kind of audio level, not too loud, not too quiet. As usual, when we start a live stream, we've got to start with all the technical checks. So hopefully that's all working. Right. I shall start properly in 1 second. Oh, background music a little too quiet. I shall turn it up just a smidge. Okay, we'll stop it there with the background music. We can always play with the background music later. Anyway, hello everyone, welcome again. My name is Ilona. As I've said, I'm a milliner based in London, and it's so wonderful to see so many of you already joining from before I even started the stream, having a nice chat in the chat section. I hope everyone is well. I am very well. I do apologise for a couple of things before we start off. You might hear some background banging noises. I live right next to, in my building, to the lift shaft, and the lift is being repaired literally right now as we speak. They started on the dot at 4 o'clock. So if you hear some banging, that's the lift. Sorry about that. Also, my hair, bit messy today, sort of on purpose. I've been growing it out, so it's getting quite long, and I can't as easily do a big bun at the back of my head like I used to, but we can talk more about hairstyles in a second, because I'm going to, in this live stream, it's very, very action-packed today. I've got 3 new vintage hats that I have added to my vintage hat collection, so I'm going to try them all on and talk about them for you today. That's why my hair's like this, because I'm going to let my hair down later. I'm also going to be announcing the 2 winners of my mini hat block giveaway. And in case you didn't know, the giveaway was to celebrate my first 2 years on YouTube and on reaching 5,000 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy and phenomenal. It's incredible, really, that we've got a community of 5,000 lovely people who love hats. So isn't that great? Hi Amoria, hi Design Painter. I always love it when you guys say hi in the chat and tell me where you're from. I love the fact that we've got a global audience here. What else will we be doing today? Let me give you some previews of what we'll be doing. This is exhibit A of one of my new hat blocks. How cool does this one look? This one came from Germany. It's a 60s style cap. I've got 2 other hat blocks that I've blocked on, so we'll be unblocking at the end of the stream. And then some of my vintage hats. This is fun, isn't it? Look at this. It does remind me a little bit of a horse's ponytail, but I think it's really, really fun. So I'll be trying these on and showing you how they look and telling you a little bit about how special all these vintage hats are. But first, everybody loves a good trip to IKEA. So I went to IKEA yesterday and bought this. And I thought we might as well unblock it live. And while, sorry, not unblock, we'll be unblocking later. We'll unbox it live. And it's a light, it's an LED light. And this is the picture on the box of apparently what you can do with this light. So obviously it's a new head. We're going to have to name it. So get your thinking caps on and start thinking up some famous head names for me. Some of you might already know I've already got a head named Anne for Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife who was beheaded. I've got a head named Charlie for King Charles I, who was a King of England that got beheaded. And I've got Cece, who we've named for Cicero, a Roman writer who also got beheaded. So if you've got any other famous beheaded people for me, then perhaps we can name this LED light after those. So get thinking now. Let's get this open and have a look, and hopefully it works. It was very cheap. Husband, can you remember how much we paid for it? Because I can't. But I remember thinking, oh, should we get it? Should we not get it? Is it a waste of money? And then thinking, oh, it was so cheap that might as well get it, have some fun with it. So let's see, £25. Yeah, it's not very expensive. super fun once I can get into the box. Okay, so as you can see on the box, it's got all these ideas of hats, people with headphones, scarves, accessories. All right. And here it is. Whoops. Okay, separate cord. I'm going to be very interested to figure out what the circumference of this head is. There it is. So just a simple LED light. It will look a lot more remarkable once I plug it in. Let's get the cord out. I mean, it does come with the various instructions, as everything from IKEA does. Does it say anything that we should know? It probably has a lot of safety things, and if you've seen any of my unboxing videos, you all know that I think reading the instructions and safety manuals is an absolute must before doing absolutely anything. Indoor use only. Nope, just the standard. Indoor use only, and if it stops working, don't use it. Here is the cord. Oh, that's quite a hefty looking safety tag on the cord as well. Apparently, this has been tested to be used with children as well, so children can play with it and have fun with it. Right. I'm never any good at these plastic ties that are used. Right, there we go, that's come off. Make sure the cat doesn't get her hands on that. Right, the cord, let's plug it in. It goes in at the back of the head. There it is. I'm guessing that's the big on-off button. So not only am I going to try the hats, but this new head is going to try the hats, although it does look incredibly large. I think it looks, I'd say that looks larger than a 57, which I would call a kind of standard men's size. I don't really like to say that they're standard sizes, but 57 is kind of an industry standard men's head, larger woman's head. Right, let's turn it on. Aha! Look at that. Oh, what fun, it changes colour. And now I shall measure it. The trouble with this changing colour though is now I am in the darkness behind it, but never mind. I might not have it on with the light all day long. Okay, it's 58. So it is, I would say, like a medium men's head. No, husband, you're a 57. Does that count as a men's medium? This is a 58. This is a 58 centimetre head. So I don't think it's going to actually fit any of the hats that I have, as in like head fitting hats, but just a general view, an overview of hats and head sizes and things like that. You might all find this useful if you ever want to make hats for yourself or for anyone else. The way I categorize it is that there's two categories of hats. There's head fitting hats, and then there's kind of perching non-head fitting hats. So head fitting hats would be things like your winter berets or turbans, anything that's designed to sit down on your head. Generally, when we measure heads, we kind of go like this. This is the first standard measurement that people take, kind of just above the eyebrows, just above the ears. Although if you wanted the hat to sit lower, you'd take into account the ears as well, depending on where the person's ears sit. So if I wanted a hat that would sit really deep on me, it would be whatever size this says, and I can't see from here. So now you all know how small my head is. My head does count as small if I don't measure it with my ears. So if I go just above my eyebrows, it should be 54, and that's quite tightly pulled. for a more comfortable fitting hat, I generally wear like a 54.5. 55 can be hit or miss on me, so it all depends. But those are head fitting hats, as I say, berets, turbans, and so on. But then you've got your other perching style hats. So for that, I would class as pillboxes or percher berets. You know, those kind of little like teardrop shapes. Anything that's not designed to fit on top of your head but needs an extra fastening. Anything like that, that's a non-head sized hat, and they are, you could say they're non-sized, you could say they're one-sized or free size, open size, whatever you want to call it. I haven't actually sat and thought about what the best, most inclusive way to call it is. Maybe I should have a think about that, or we can all have a think about that together. Anyway, I'm going to turn this light off because it's slightly flashing. We'll put it on later. Roxanne's suggestion is Marie Antoinette. She says it's cool because she was famous for hats and had a very colourful life. Very true. Very good name. So I paused the head and okay, so it cycles through colours, and if I want it, let's see if I can pause it on a colour. Blue. Let's see. Oh, that's a nice colour. Oh no, that turned it off. Now I'm confused. Hang on. On. Okay, it's jumping. Then I pause it. Is that cycling through colours? This must be riveting to watch. Aha, that's now staying one colour. And I press it again, jumps back to red, and now it gradients through. Okay, I think I've got the pattern down now. Joy says Mary Stuart after Mary Queen of Scots. Yes. Oh, but maybe Mary Marie, they sound quite close, so we could kind of go a combination of Mary and Marie. Design Painter says Max Headroom was not beheaded, but he was also not a real person. Very funny. Right, I'm going to pop the head away for now, take a sip of tea, and what did I say I was going to do next? Oh, do you know what? Maybe we should have a very quick catch up while I just sip on some tea. So at the beginning of the year, I said, oh, I'm back. I'm not going to disappear again. And then I sort of disappeared a little bit. I'm sorry, everyone. Life got a bit hectic because I started doing some pop-up shops. So there will be some vlogs coming soon. Yes, so that's where I've been, in case anyone is wondering. And the problem with doing pop-up shops is when I'm not the one organising them, I don't trust some of the organisers with hats, because a lot of people have not come across hats these days and they don't know how to handle them. They class them as an accessory and start handling them a bit like jewellery. But jewellery you can handle a lot and it's not going to get damaged unless you drop it on the floor and it breaks. But with a hat, if you handle it too much, it can start looking worn and then you can't really sell it again. So I did a pop-up shop that was 14 days and I didn't take any days off. I came in every single day to make sure that my hats were okay, because I just did not trust the people working in the shop. And I did not trust the people working in the shop to be able to sell the hats on my behalf, because hats are a little bit of a weird product. If we stop thinking of hats as, you know, the joyous, fun accessories that we all love because we're hat lovers, if you're not a hat person and you're encountering a hat for the first time, you might not know your way around a hat, and you might try on one hat that doesn't suit your face and doesn't suit your head and doesn't suit what you're wearing, and then you think, oh, all hats are awful, I'm never going to put another one on. So the trick with non-hat wearers when they come up to something like hats is to try and get them to put on a hat that's instantly going to be the hat for them. And that's a skill that when I first started millinery, the tutors would talk about, like, oh, the right hat for the right kind of face shape and that kind of thing. And whilst I don't really agree with the idea that, oh, you must wear the correct hat for the correct head. No, I don't look at it in those terms of this is right for this person and this is wrong for this person. I look at it more from the perspective of what's going to be the most flattering, and does the person's face light up when I put the hat on their head. So that's my view on it. It's more about not what is correct or isn't correct. It's more about giving that person who's trying on the hat, giving the customer some joy in finding the right hat for them. And actually that's the one good thing that I've taken away from the entire shop selling assistant thing, pop-up shops, is the thing I enjoy the most is matching the right person to the right hat. And when you put the right hat onto the right person and you see their face light up and you see them get so excited and suddenly they're relaxed, they're themselves, they're not thinking about, oh, what's this thing I'm balancing on my head? No, they totally forget that it's there. They walk around the shop, they have a lot of fun, and hopefully they buy it. But if they don't buy it, do you know what? That's okay, because at least I've introduced someone to the joys of hats. So that's where I've been. And I am hoping to release, as I've said, all of these thoughts as a vlog. It might be my most controversial vlog to date, so do keep your eye out on that one. And if you haven't got your notifications turned on for new videos, and YouTube isn't very good at showing you my new videos because I've been absent for a while, I do recommend signing up to my newsletter. In fact, I'll just quickly post the link to sign up to my newsletter. Hopefully this is the right list. Let's see. And did that work? Hopefully that's the right link even. So you just type in your email address, subscribe to my newsletter. You'll have to click that you want to subscribe when you get your confirmation email and all of that. But I don't want to spam anyone with the newsletter. I was going to do a newsletter once a month and then I ran out of time. And so it's kind of been more of a newsletter once every couple of months, just to let you know what I've been up to and what events I have upcoming. If you happen to live in London, I am hoping to do more pop-up shops around. So if you want to come meet me for a chat about hats, then definitely sign up to the newsletter, because then you'll know where I am and where you can find me, basically. Right. How are we doing for time? That's been about 20 minutes of chatting about me. Time to stop, I think. And let's chat about some actual hats. So, let me grab all the hats. Oops. This is also going to be a really good opportunity to chat a little bit about how head-sized hats and head-fitting hats can be changed. If you buy a vintage hat and it's too big or too small, there are ways to make it fit you. So let's chat a little bit about that. Right, yes, this is the long hair. My hair hasn't been this long for a while, but you know, we're entering a new era, so I thought I would grow it out. So let's start with this hat over here. Oh, and now I've put hats in front of the other camera view. Roxanne says, I blocked with buckram that wooden ring block to make a sloped curved pillbox because I found a pillbox that's identical to that block. Got an event in 2 weeks, so I'm giving it a go. Congratulations, Roxanne. And if you're wondering what on earth Roxanne is talking about, Roxanne is one of my Patreons, so thank you so much, Roxanne, for all your support. And if you want to chat hats in detail with me, then you can go and sign up to the top tier of my Patreon, and we have monthly video chats with each other, and we talk all about hats, and I give you advice on hats, and you can tell me about your product, you can tell me about your projects, and we just have a nice time chatting away. So great, Roxanne, that's so good to hear that it's all going so well for you, and I can't wait to see your hat in our upcoming video call. Right, back to these hats. So, a few years ago now, maybe 2 years, well, less than 2 years ago, I made a video about a hat that I had bought, who was made by the brand Edna Wallace. So I have eBay and Etsy alert set up, so whenever a new listing comes for Edna Wallace hats, I look at it, and if it's an acceptable price, then I snap it up and buy it. So here is one of my most recent purchases. It's an off-white fur felt helmet type wool wool hat. Trying to keep that in the frame. It might be easier if I move this over here. There we go. That's better, isn't it? This way around on the screen. It's got a very interesting trim. So the trim here, this tassel bit, what it is it's the milliner has taken a second capeline or hood, and you can learn all about that terminology in my types of wool felt video. And she's cut most of the felt into strips, but then left, I wonder if you can see in there, left it on like a little rectangle. So not all the way to the edge of the felt, and then rolled it up into a roll and then stitched it in. It's all hand stitched, and then that fitting is obscured by another very well cut and sanded, or actually is it, oh, it's a double layered folded over bit of felt that's going around and kind of giving it this upwards support. And on the inside you can see the stitching, so they haven't tried to disguise the stitching at all. This is something that I'm really enjoying about vintage hats, that actually this obsession that we now have in model millinery or couture millinery. So there's no such thing as couture millinery. Couture millinery we tend to call model millinery, and if you want to find out more about that, you can have a look at countless talks that milliner Stephen Jones has given on that subject. So let's call it model millinery for the fancy thing, and then like mid-range millinery for this kind of thing. This is definitely a mid-range millinery hat. I would say it's probably from the early 60s, mid 60s, late 60s maybe, actually. Late 60s. Let's go late 60s, and let's pop it onto my head. It's a little small for me. So I'm putting it on, and it does fit, but when I put it on, let's see. Can you see it's ever so slightly creeping up? So as I start moving my head, it creeps up. So it's not very comfy. So I do want to make it ever so slightly bigger so that it feels better. I might make it bigger and pop a comb on the inside. I love how it looks. I really like the playfulness of the tassels. It's so much fun. I bought this hat and then I thought, oh my goodness, it's so amazing. And I love how it looks. And I want to make some hats in this kind of shape. And first I thought, well, I could clone the block. There's so many ways of cloning blocks. I've got 2 videos, I think, on making your own hat blocks. You can use the PU foam method, which was one of my first videos that I did, or you can use the plaster block method, where you create a paper net, you do all your measurements, you make a wire frame, and then you plaster the wire frame, and it's all a bit of a faff, and it takes ages. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to see what is available on eBay. And there was a block that I think achieves this kind of shape. It's time for my favourite game. Can husband find the hat block in the cupboard? Husband, I would like you to find for me in the hat block cupboard the hat block that looks like this shape. I think it's under another hat. It should be, as you walk in, on the very left on the middle shelf. Oh, and please bring it carefully because it's a puzzle block and I don't want you to drop any pieces. So the reason why I've opted to try and find a hat block of this kind of helmet shape rather than make it myself is because this is white. And it's not a hat that I'm willing to sacrifice in case things go wrong. Aha, perfect. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Oh, it's on its spinner. Good. Well found, husband. So you see this? This is the shape of the hat. So it's got this helmet, bulbous helmet shape. And this is my favorite bit of the block. Let me switch camera views. Here it is. So you see this swoop down here, this bottom curve. That's what I was looking for. Because you can see on this white hat, is that the same way? I don't know if that's, yeah, kind of. You can let's see. Oh, maybe look in the other camera view. If you look in the other camera view, in the small one, you can see that this slopes. It's not a straight line. It looks like a straight line, but it's not. There's a slight slopey curve. And this is the more exaggerated slopey curve, but it's a slopey curve, and that's what I was after. So I'm so glad I found this. I might do another hat block restoration video. I might not, because essentially it just needs a little bit of a sand. Because this is a puzzle block, can you see that? It's a 4-piece puzzle block, this one. There's a little bit of sinkage in this puzzle piece over here, so there's a gap just there. So if I was to block on this as is, I think I'm going to end up seeing all these lines and that won't be too good. It's also a little bit loose, so here, can you see how that moves? It might just need some new dowels on the middle piece just to get it all nice and together. There's a bit of a dimple here. It almost looks like maybe someone dropped it or dropped something heavy onto it, so it needs just a little bit of plaster. Oh, there's a bit of a crack on the top. Now that I'm looking at it, there's a lot going on here that needs a little bit of restoration. But you can look at my restoration video if you have an old block that you need restoring as well. That's, in my opinion, quite a comprehensive guide on how to do that kind of thing. So anyway, this is my new block. This is my new Edna Wallace hat. Oh, I was going to talk about how to make it smaller. But before I do that, let's talk about a hat that's too big, because we can cover the whole big hat, small hat in one go. So I'm just going to pop this hat onto there. So hat number 2. How stunning is this color? Look at that. And this grapevine, this is called a grapevine bow. It's so fabulous. If you want to know more about different types of bows, I can recommend a very good book. I've got it with me right here. This is a great book for learning about parts of millinery. It was written, I think, hang on, where's the original publication date? It's one of the older books on it, 1926. And obviously it's got this image of a Victorian milliner lady fiddling around with her hat ribbons. And the advice in here is very Edwardian. But it has some really good chapters on flowers. Let's see if I can quickly find them. Oh, there we go. Look, bows. Really good stuff on bows and ribbons and flowers. And I'm sure I've spoken about this particular book in one of my previous live streams about book reviews, so you can go and find one of those and have a look more about it. But this is how I know that this is a grapevine bow, because it says so in this book. And with this being a grapevine bow, I have taken this idea and put it on a Regency bonnet that I made as a custom order for someone, and there will be a video coming out on my interpretation of Regency bonnets for cosplay purposes at some point, where I will talk more about this bow. So I guess for now, let's just focus on what is this hat. Once again, it's Tricky by Edna Wallace. This time round though, I think this is a more expensive hat than the white one because it is lined and the ribbon is sewn in by hand, not by machine. On the white one, you can see that you might not be able to see because the camera's not close enough, but this ribbon has been put in with a machine stitch on a sewing machine. But on the red one, it has been put in by hand with invisible tiny stitches, which is the model millinery technique for putting in ribbons. You do it by hand. Let's pop it on my head. You see, it's too big. It just collapses down and my hair collapses down. I think this hat should sit more like this. I think it should sit a bit more like this. So again, it's got that 1960s bulbous shape, and you've got the fabulous grapevine bow. I'm going to turn around and show it to you right now. I think it's fabulous. These kind of big hats are really great, I think, for now, because now in fashion, we've seen a shift. We had kind of 2010s, we kind of had the fit and flare, sleeveless or tight sleeve type dresses. And now we've got the 70s are back with the flouncy, puffy sleeves and the ruched bodices and long skirts. And these kind of hats are really good for balancing this kind of silhouette. I probably wouldn't wear this red with this green, but if you ignore the colors and you look at just the shapes, I think this looks really well, and it works with flowing hair. Although I'm not usually one for having my hair down, it gets in my way. So whilst I am growing it out, I'm growing it out so I can plait it rather than have it down, because it just, you see, it's getting on my nerves already. Rachel from La Bricoluse says that the Millinery for Every Woman is her favourite reference book for fabric and ribbon flowers. And I must admit, Rachel, that's precisely why I bought this book. It was on your recommendation, and I think this is a really great reference book. Not for beginners, just going to put it out there, definitely not for beginners, but after you've read your beginner's book, this is the next book for you if you're interested in trimming and specifically historical millinery. So highly recommend. You can buy them secondhand. I don't know if they're still in print. Roxanne says, is the red one also stiffened with net under the lining? Good question. So it tends to be straw that's stiffened with a Paris net under linings. This one, I'm just feeling it now. No, it's not. Another thing to think about with these vintage hats is you might be quite surprised if you've ever handled a vintage hat compared to a modern hat. They're very flexible. The felts are a lot denser than modern felts, and they didn't tend to be stiffened. In fact, when I interviewed Sarah Marshall, who is now the owner and designer and milliner for John Boyd hats, there's an interview video, Matthew, could you, husband, drop that into the chat. I highly recommend you watch that, because Sarah is full of the little tricks and tips that John Boyd did in his millinery that she carries through now, and now I do as well, because John Boyd was just an absolute millinery legend, in my opinion. So Sarah said that when they worked with felts and when Mr. Boyd worked with felts, he wouldn't stiffen the hats. Even though it says so in some vintage millinery manuals about hat stiffening and things like that, you'd only really do that if you really felt that it needed the structure. These are all super soft. Look at that. It just dents. It's so soft. This one's actually quite heavy for a hat, and that's this great big bow here. The grapevine bow here. It's a reinterpretation of a grapevine bow. Traditionally, you just use the silk This is, I think, silk dupion. It feels a bit too stiff to be just silk satin. I think it's silk dupion, with these felt loops, and it's all this kind of nice mesh of gorgeousness. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just so wonderful and glorious. And again, you can see the stitching. You can see the stitching, but I think here's the thing. You can see the stitching if you know to look for it. I don't know if that's coming through on the camera there. There's stitching that you can see in there underneath all of that. And that's fine. But what makes it model millinery is that it's lined and it's hand sewn on the inside. So there we go. And another interesting thing to note here is there's little, you can see poking out from that ribbon, this white foamy fluff, something, cotton wool. I don't think it's cotton wool. It feels more like polyester wadding, but that's there to hold the shape, but it's only in the bottom 3 bits of the bow. It's not in the top sections. And I just thought that was an interesting detail. I don't know if that's supposed to be taken out before wearing. The hat came like this. I don't know if it was the vintage seller who packaged it like this to send it to me, or whether it was packaged like this by the original wearer of the hat and just kept, or whether when this hat was purchased from Edna Wallace, it was packaged like this and worn like this, or I don't know. But I'm going to keep that white wadding in there because you can't really see it. You can only see it, you can see it there, that bit, but I don't think that's a big deal. I actually think it's quite nice that it's keeping the shape, but if you were to put it in the top sections, you'd definitely see it. Ooh, lots of chat messages coming in. Roxanne says, I love that red hat profile. I do too. It's a different shape to that bulbous hat block that I was just showing, but it's a similar idea. And I think if I wanted to achieve this shape, I could take that bulbous hat block, pad it out with a little bit of wadding or some rope or something, and achieve this kind of halo effect on the top. I think it is stunning. Rachel has posted La Bricoluse, her video on historical millinery reference books. Definitely a good video to watch. So once we finish up the stream here, go and check out Rachel's channel. Lots of helpful information as well. And then Matthew posted the John Boyd video. Thank you so much, husband. And then Rachel says, I don't like it when modern hat bodies are pre-stiffened. I am of the same opinion. There's only one situation I can think of where actually pre-stiffened hat bodies are a good idea. And that's if you're using chemical stiffener and you are pregnant or you are trying to get pregnant, you should not be using chemical millinery stiffener. And if you're still wanting to make hats, then pre-stiffened wool felt bodies are the way to go, because don't touch chemicals if you are in that position. But other than that, I agree. I don't like pre-stiffened hat bodies, because then you, as the maker, as the designer, as the creator, you have that choice taken away from you. You have the choice taken away of how stiff you want your hat to be, because sometimes you might want a hat to be really stiff. Sometimes you might want your hat to be super flexible. And if you wanted your hat to be super flexible, you could put, you could not stiffen it and put some Dior net, Paris net underneath, just like John Boyd used to do, to keep it. It's the stuff used in turbans. Just another foundation material. Or you could just stiffen it just enough, like this white one. It's definitely got some level of stiffener to it. It's not super soft. You can see when I press in, it does keep a dimple, but it's still soft. It's not a helmet, even though it looks like a helmet. And same with this one actually, but this one actually feels less stiff, but the felt is denser. This is a standard fur felt. This red one, it's a bit of a funny fur felt. I can't quite figure out what's going on with it because I've not quite seen anything like it. I can't see the underside of it, so I don't know if it's double-sided or not, but it's so fuzzy. It's so fuzzy. I'd call it fuzzier than a modern peach bloom, but it's definitely not a melusine, so I don't know what it is. And it's not a Salome either, because Salome is still quite, you know, long and shaggy. It's just a bit coarser. But this one is, it's like stroking a peach. I've not felt anything like it before. It's just glorious. Everything about this red hat is glorious. Let's move on to the last hat, and then I'll talk about resizing. Here is the last hat. I shall put it on. This is the one that fits me, I think, quite well. So it looks to me like it was possibly blocked on the same block as the red one, because it's got the same kind of halo bulbous shape, as you can see. I love the brown colour, and I think it looks really nice with my brown hair, and I do like to wear a lot of green, so brown and green, it's a beautiful combination. And I know that Roxanne, you absolutely love brown, so this one's for you. This is also a really fuzzy peach bloom fur felt. It's actually fuzzier than the red one. If the red one is like stroking a peach, this one's more like stroking, I don't know, some kind of animal with short hair, but it's not a melusine. So this is what it looks like. I'll show you the back. I'll do a close-up. Here it is. The bow on this is absolutely wonderful. One of the things I love about collecting vintage hats is that because I am mainly self-taught from books, these kind of things, when you see them in a picture of a vintage book and someone says, oh, make a bow, and you kind of think, oh, okay, but what's the scale of it? I don't quite know. I've not handled it. I've not been to a class. I don't know what it's like. But buying a vintage hat is so much cheaper than going to a millinery course. And it can teach you so much if you know what to look for. So let me take you through what I see as important moments in this hat. It is, well, firstly, the felt. It's like nothing I've ever felt before. It's just so fuzzy. It's actually got some damage to it, which it might not come across on camera, but it almost looks like, I don't know, someone's taken tufts out of it. It doesn't look like it's moths. But here's a tip for everyone who collects vintage and is scared of moths. You are right to be scared of moths. I bought something vintage, brought it into the flat, and have had a moth problem since, but it's taken me 2 years, but I've got rid of the moths with the kind of the little moth trap things that are pet safe. But the way to make sure that you don't let moths happen in the first place, every time you buy something, pop it in the freezer for 24, 48 hours, for a whole week. Sometimes my husband opens the freezer and says, oh, there's a hat in there. And that's because when I get something vintage, the first thing I do now, after having learnt my lesson with moths the hard way, is just pop it in the freezer and just leave it there. Sometimes I leave it there for a whole week. I don't think I have to leave it there for a whole week, but I just do. And then after that, if it's something like clothes and you're not going to ruin them with some steam, you can steam them as well, because you've got the cold, you've got the hot, that will do it. Hats I wouldn't always steam because you don't want them to dent unless you've got a shape to keep the shape, as it were. Anyway, so make them moth-proof, put them in the freezer. Right, back to the bow. This is some kind of, I don't think it's quite silk. I think it's actually a viscose imitation silk, because it's not as soft as you'd expect silk to be. It's quite coarse. It feels like it's rayon or viscose trying to be chiffon, because it's keeping its shape much more than chiffon does, but it's definitely got that gauziness of chiffon. So what I like about this bow is these edges of the bow, they are not hemmed in any way. And I would not have thought that it was okay to not hem a bow. But it's so nice to see it, that it's not hemmed. It's just folded over on the bias and it hasn't frayed. And if this hat is from the late 60s, then it's not frayed for what, 60 years. And that's good to know that that kind of decision can be a good decision and it lasts. So Rachel says that you love seeing the structure of the bow. It's so great, isn't it? I'd call this maybe a butterfly bow, because what you've got is you've got like a big wing, like this big wing, and then you've got the smaller wing. And it is, I think, 1 or 2 pieces of fabric. I haven't actually fully dissected exactly how I'd remake one of these. I think it's 4 pieces of separate bits of fabric. Again, the bow, it's folded in on the inside, like with an unfinished hem. Everything's cut on the bias, and then it's just gathered or pleated very, very well. And it's just very lightly placed on the hat. It almost looks like a big chocolate butterfly has fluttered onto this hat and just perched on, and it's so, so perfect. Trims for hats should be delicately placed. It shouldn't look like they've been sewn on with the strength of the world. They should look like they just belong there. They're nice and secure, but they're not fighting the hat to stay on. And that's what this one feels like. It doesn't feel forced, and it feels very delicately put onto the hat. And this is another bit of the bow. It's a very pretty piece, but it's also a very clever piece of the design, because this is hiding all the stitches that have been used to gather this bow and to put it on the hat. And I think it's just a very nice way of covering your stitches. It's plaited. It's this same felt. It's probably offcuts from the skirt when you trim the felt, and it's plaited into this shape. And then you've got these 2 wonderful hanging bits. I think that's lovely. Shall we have a look at the inside now? Oh, let's read some chat. Yasmin says, bias doesn't fray, dressmaker here. Yes, absolutely. We all know that the bias doesn't fray, but I think there's always a small part of me that's like, ooh, I'm a proper milliner. I should really hem everything. But actually, without a stitching line, I think it looks fine. So that was kind of my point, that yes, I know it won't fray, but at least it also keeps the nice shape. Amoria says it's very beautiful. It is. I very much agree. And Labricalou says, my first millinery teacher would critique hat trims as looking hammered on. Yes, that's exactly the kind of phrasing that I've also read in some milliner biographies, where they also speak about how the worst thing possible is for trims to look like they've just been smushed into the hat, and you don't want that. You want things to look light. And when I started millinery, I think I was guilty of putting trims and sometimes ribbons and even wires, putting them into hats and really pulling tight on the thread, and you could see the dimples where I'd pulled the thread, and it wasn't the best, but it was okay. And certainly my finish has improved since I've made more hats, and I guess I'd like that to be encouragement for all of you who are just starting out, perhaps, or even if you've been going for a few years and you're thinking, what can you do to elevate your millinery? And it's just to teach yourself delicate touches with fingers. Roxanne says she's off to bed. Good night. I hope you sleep well. Amoria says, what was the name of the little book you had up earlier? It's this one here, I guess you're talking about. It's called Millinery for Every Woman by Georgina Kerr Kay. So here it is. What I will do is I will possibly, actually, let me just type the name into the chat, because just so that we don't get any spellings wrong. Because the original was published in the 1920s, it might be one of those books that's technically out of copyright, and so you can find a free version to read online. There is a wonderful website called archive.org. I'll type that one in. I think that's the right URL. Yeah, archive.org. And you can search for books, topics, and things that you can legally look at for free, which is great because it is, I find historical books are a never-ending research. If you can understand the language and you're comfortable reading off your computer screen, which I was, and now I've been told I have to wear glasses, so I do prefer to read paper books. So if I can find them secondhand or in charity shops, or there's a great website called Abe Books. I think they do a lot of secondhand reselling books. So there's so many places you can find these titles in whatever format you want to have a look at. You could always have a look at them on archive.org for free and see if you want to keep it on your bookshelf as a physical copy, and then if you like it, go and actually purchase it secondhand or reprinted, or however you want to do that. That tends to be how I do it, because we don't all have never-ending budgets and we've got to spend money wisely, so there we go. Rachel says, I just bought a 1952 millinery manual from abebooks.com. Ooh, what's it called? What's it called? I have been trying to buy up every single millinery manual from the mid-century that I can find as well. I'm saying that after having said that we all have never-ending budgets. Yes, it is a problem. But I am kind of careful with my purchases because I don't want to purchase books that have the same information. To be honest, it does get to a stage where all the vintage books are just repeating themselves, and in some cases even just completely word for word copying paragraphs and chapters. So you don't have to buy all the books that Rachel and I talk about. I just get the feeling that Le Bricolous and I are vintage book lovers, and so we collect them for the sake of collecting, even if they're not as useful as potentially they are. But if I come across a useful book, I will of course always tell you guys. Ooh, I think my throat is in need of a little break in a second. I promised to talk about making hats bigger and smaller, so let's very quickly do that, and then I will take a quick intermission break to rest my voice. So, I mentioned this white hat, a bit too small because I put it on, and for a start, so my ears are here. If I get rid of my hair off my ears, here are my ears. It's kind of wanting to sit like this, and it's pushing my ears forwards, which it's a look, but it's not the best look. So I would ideally like it to be worn a little bit over the tops of my ears, but when I push it down over my ears, I can feel it riding up. And if you can feel your hat riding up, that means it's definitely too small. So I need to expand it maybe by 1 centimeter, just to make it fit more comfortably. There's several ways you can do that. You can just use a hat jack and stretch it. However, what size is a hat? It's the ribbon on the inside. It's the Petersham ribbon that is giving your hat the size. That's why off of one block, I think you can get 3 sizes of hat. You can get the original measurement of the block, you can go 1 centimeter above, and you can go 1 centimeter below. And the way to do that is to make the Petersham ribbon the exact measurement you want it to be. Then you mark your 4 points on the Petersham ribbon and your 4 points on your hat. So we call them, for the sake of just easy talking about it, north, south, east, west, whichever way you want to. So just 4 points on a compass. You could also say clock hands, but north, south, east, west, whatever. Mark them onto your ribbon, mark them onto your hat, match up the points, and then hand stitch the ribbon in. If you machine stitch, you might end up with more, like, the ribbon pulling on one side more than the other. It can happen. So if you're new, do it by hand. And also, hand stitching gives you a little more flexibility in the thread because you're controlling that tension. With machine stitching, the tension on the thread is you've got two threads interlocking, and they're giving it a really good, strong seam, which is great for when you're making a dress, but it's not necessarily what you want in a hat band because, you know, when it's hot or cold, your head might expand a bit or shrink a bit. You know, your hands do that as well. Sometimes when it's really cold, I put on my wedding ring and it just falls off my finger because my hand's so cold that it shrunk back a bit. Or in the summer, sometimes I can't put my wedding ring on because my finger's expanded and swelled because it's too hot. So your head will do the same thing. That's why it's really great to sew in ribbons by hand. I have to confess, I don't do this all the time. If I'm trying to keep the cost of a hat down, like for my just my standard beret range, I do tend to machine sew them in. But if I was making something completely bespoke and charging a bespoke price, when I make something bespoke, I do add on a design and personalization surcharge. And that's when I would sew something in by hand, like on this red one. So to decrease the size of this red one, I would probably take the entire ribbon off, maybe give it a bit of a wash, because you don't know who's and how long has they been wearing this, and I want to reuse the ribbon because I'm making it smaller rather than bigger, so I might as well wash the ribbon, let it dry, curve it. We always curve ribbon for going inside hats, and then size it correctly to my head, and yeah, that's how you would resize a hat, up and down. You can go up a centimetre and down 1 centimetre, no problem. If you're trying to go much higher than that, then you might need a proper hat stretcher, and that's those big, big machines, and they are very expensive, and they're not worth it unless, really, I would say, unless you're making a lot of men's hats or men's style hats, like fedoras or things like that, because that's when it's easy to change the shape of those ones. Anyway, right, quick break, and I shall be back to announce the giveaway winners. Okay, I'll see you in about 1 or 2 minutes. You might see an advert. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I will be right back. Right, welcome back everyone. I put my hair back up in the bun and now it looks all odd, but never mind. Because I've been so busy, I'm a lot more relaxed about what is going on up here. And I know that that might not be particularly great. I do still like to do my hair nicely, but yeah, today is not that day. Today I am easing back into normal YouTube work life after having had a rush of orders and things come in because we've got Ascot coming up, which I might do a video on. I'm thinking about doing a video on just races in general, but it might not be about what you guys might expect it to be. I don't really want to go into like I used to do those looking at hats, rating hats or whatever videos. I kind of thought, oh, Ascot would be great for that. But the more I read about races, horse racing and racing culture, at least here in the UK, the more disappointed I am and actually rather quite upset about that existing as an industry. And I think that topic in itself deserves a full-on research deep dive and discussion. So maybe video coming, but no promises. Anyway, welcome back everybody. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to make themselves a cup of tea. I'm drinking my tea of choice at the moment is Darjeeling. I seem to go through phases of different types of teas. That's wonderful. Right. Giveaway winner announcement time. So a few months ago, I posted about doing a giveaway because that seems to be what people do on YouTube. And I had a couple of small blocks, which I think are perfect for people starting out. I don't think I've actually used these blocks myself. I just had them in my collection. And I thought that since I'm not using them, someone else can get more use out of them, and what's the point in me holding on to them when someone else can have them? So here were the prizes. It was the little teardrop percher type block. So earlier today I was talking about perching hats and so on. So this one, it would kind of sit like this, or pointing upwards, pointing forwards, however you want. That's what these little blocks are good for. They're really good for giving you a little structure to work with and playing with your creativity. And also this apostrophe block, which also similar idea. You can have a little tiny one like this, or, you know, however you decide. And so the two winners are, there is a first place and a second place. I'm not very good at building up tension, am I? No. So let's pretend that I didn't try and build up tension and completely fail with that. I'm going to share my screen to read out the winners, who I have incidentally messaged on their comment to email me. So if I have commented on your comment and said, congratulations, please email me, then you know that you are the winner. But just to make sure that you all don't get scammed by some scammers out there who want you to pay for things, I'm not going to ask the winners to pay for postage. I'm covering all the costs. And here they... press the wrong button. Here we go. So the first place has gone to Caroline. And Caroline's winning comment is this. Dearest Ilona, my name is Caroline and I come from Slovakia. I found your channel and I am absolutely in love. You are funny, real and a great milliner. I am a vintage lover, 20s to 50s, and I had a dream for a long time to make hats like once Coco Chanel did at the beginning of her career. I think millinery is one of those forgotten art techniques which should definitely have more attention as well as wearers in today's fast society. I truly believe once I will be able to create hats like you do. I have bought already 3 blocks, so let's see. Because of this passion of mine, I would really, really love to win the giveaway you make here. It would help me a lot, and the hat blocks are quite rare and here in Slovakia impossible to buy, or yes, but they are very pricey. Thank you so much for everything you do. Hashtag favorite 2023. So congratulations, Caroline. I think your comment is really, really lovely. Thank you so much for calling me a great milliner. I must admit, makes me blush a little bit. I don't think I am a great milliner. I think I'm an okay milliner. But anyway, this is more about you, Caroline. It's less about me. I really love your passion and your enthusiasm. And I noticed in your photo, I think you're wearing a little calo half hat, which is a great choice. So as you are the first prize, first place winner, you get to pick which one of these you want. And alongside these, you will receive some blocking pins in this little sparkly glittery box. So congratulations. Once again, I love your enthusiasm and I would love to send you one of these. Just get in touch with me via email and we will sort out all the details. Right. Winner number 2 is Anissa. Anissa sometimes joins us on the live streams, but I have a feeling she's not here today because I've not seen her comment, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that Anissa has won second place with her lovely comment, which I shall read out now. Anissa commented on my octopus felt hat video for Felt Makers 2022, I think. Yes, the Felt Makers Competition 2022. So congratulations, Anissa. This is your winning comment. I find this hat gorgeous and daring. Octopus are not the most attractive sea creatures in the large, but they are fascinating. And what you did with that inspiration is wonderful. It's not too obvious, but not too far, just the perfect dosage. Your hats are a great source of inspiration for me. Favorite 2023. That is so wonderful to hear. I'm so glad that you find me inspiring, and I hope that what you're saying here and what everyone can take from my videos is that inspiration can really come from anywhere. Keep that thought, everybody. Husband, the battery is about to go on the main camera. Oh, and now that one's not working. Oh, I think all of the cameras are about to go. So we will quickly have a camera changeover. But you can still listen to me talk about what I like about Anissa's comment. And I think what the main thing about Anissa's comment is this idea of taking inspiration from anywhere and thinking about it, letting it sit in your mind, and then reinterpreting it to be something new and something exciting and not too obvious. And I'm really glad that that's exactly what you got from my video, and I would love to see what you create from whichever hat block I send to you. So once again, Anissa, congratulations. Please send me an email and we will sort out the details. So, yay! And thank you everyone else for your wonderful comments. Sorry about the noise. Battery changes going on here. Yes, so, yes, thank you everyone else for your wonderful entries, and I did say in my announcement video that I would read every single one of the comments, and guess what? I did, and I don't have time to read out every single one of them out loud on the live stream, but they were really great, and some of them were really touching, and just because you didn't get the first place or second place doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy reading your comment, and I hope you all continue learning from my videos and other places as well. Learn from Lubricaloose, learn from SH Millinery or JWH Millinery. We've got a lovely millinery community here on YouTube for you to learn from. Get in touch with your local millinery tutors, take some classes, read some books. You can learn from anywhere and everything and practice the skills so that we don't lose millinery and hat making as an art form. Oh, and please wear your hats. When you make a hat, please wear it so that people on the street can see that, you know, we're wearing hats. We love to wear hats and we love to make hats. Right. Roxanne, you've left a very good comment there about horse racing. I will definitely keep that in mind for some research if I decide to make the horse racing video, because I think there's a lot of things that should be discussed about horse racing. Anyway, I don't want to leave on a sad note. What I will do is I will quickly take a 1-minute break while I clear my desk and bring on all the hats that I want to unblock live with all of you here, so we can talk about some of the new blocks that I have and how they work. So see you in 1 minute, everybody. Welcome back, everyone. That was a very quick break. I don't want to hold everyone for any longer than we need to, and we shouldn't let the live stream run over 2 hours because I think that's a bit too much for everyone to be sat listening to me. You've all probably got other things to be getting on with. So, what have I got here? I have got another new hat block. So as I was saying, oh, husband, could you come and focus this for me? Because it's a bit out of focus. I want everyone to be able to see it properly. Thank you. As I was saying, I have been selling my hats, and the business side of things has, to my surprise, really taken off, and I've had a little bit of spare money finally. And what I've done is, instead of spending that money on myself, I've gone and reinvested it into my business. What seemed to do really well were my winter hats. I think winter hats are a good way to get non-hat wearers interested in more interesting shapes, because you're more likely to wear a hat for a practical purpose if you're not a high fashion hat wearer. So I wanted to invest in some blocks that would look good and interesting being blocked in felt. There's no reason why I couldn't block them in straw as well, because I think that will look fabulous. But the main purpose of this is to make some hats that can be sold in felt. This is a tartan green colour. This is a rabbit fur felt. Let's start unblocking it. What I've got here is a block with lots and lots of grooves. And when you block with grooves, you want to use string or cord to put into the grooves and then put your pins into. Because what that does is that protects from pinhole marks. It means you don't have to use as many pins, because you can tension the cord as you put your pins into the block. Ooh. So that you can get all the grooves in. Now, the one downside to this is you can get a line. So you can see There's a bit of a line from my cord here. Perhaps I could have used a thicker cord. Maybe I pulled the cord too tight. But what my idea is to remedy this, I've got some water in a spray bottle and a natural bristle brush, so it's nice and soft. I'm going to spray the brush. So it's only with one spray. I don't want it damp. As in, I don't want it sopping wet. I want it just slightly cold to the touch. And then I'm going to brush the felt. And hopefully, you could do this with steam as well. But instead of the rigmarole of setting up a steamer, I figured it would be easier to just use just a slightly damp brush while it's still on the block. And that is doing a pretty good job. And the other thing I've done on this block, because of all these swirls, is I've brushed the peach bloom to follow the direction of these swirls. So that's what I'm doing now with the brush, as well as getting out the cord marks, which I think that's gone pretty well. Maybe I could have pulled the felt a little bit tighter, but you know what? For a first blocking on a new block, that's not too bad. Yeah, I could have done it a bit tighter. There's a little bit of give there, but you know what? We're not all perfect first time round. So I probably wouldn't sell this particular hat. It's not good enough to sell because it's got some gappage, I call it, because you can see I can press down and the felt's moving. That's not good enough to sell, but I can wear it or I can gift it to someone. But I wouldn't be able to sell this for full price. But that's okay. When I was making this, I was thinking, well, I'm experimenting with a new block. I might as well just make it for myself. Right, that's the first bit gone. There's a little bit of a more severe hole there. I'm just trying to find a brush. This is a metal bristle brush. I wouldn't recommend using these too much because they can take off big chunks, but I've got a little bit of a hole here from the pins. So I'm just going to brush it a little bit. There we go, that's better. Just a gentle brush. You see how much it takes off? It's all green now. So I wouldn't use this on the whole of the hat. Right, let's continue taking out these pins. So I'm using some pliers, just normal flat nose pliers. And as I take the pins out, sometimes they bend, sometimes they stay straight. If the pins bend a bit, that's okay. You can straighten them using some pliers. And I've used my favorite type of pins, which are these black enamel steel pins. They don't rust. They're a little bit thicker than your normal blocking pins. And perhaps in hindsight, what I should have done is on these ridges is I should have actually used these, which are called household blocking pins. They're just like dressmakers pins. They're a bit thinner. They would have left less of a mark. But I know that for next time. Right, a bit more spray of water. And then going with the direction of the fur. And I can still see a few holes, so I will use the metal brush, but very gently. There we go. That's looking pretty good. I can't wait to try this on. I have got no idea what it's going to look like on my head. You know, sometimes you just see a block and you think, oh, it looks so exciting, but I really cannot imagine what it's going to be like until I block on it and see. And that's the case with this block. And I have got it wrong with some blocks before, where I've purchased a block thinking that it will look one way, and then actually I block on it and I put the hat on my head and something's just not quite right about it. And those blocks I tend to sell on because some other people might know what they're doing better than me, and who am I to hold on to blocks when someone else might find them useful. So I do actually have a couple of blocks in my cupboard that I am thinking of selling on. So if you're interested, I don't know, let me know, and I might list them somewhere or sell them to you directly. Yeah, I need to sort that out. There's a lot of things I need to sort out. Right, I've taken out these pins now. So can you see all of those holes and the cord line? That's what I'm going to get rid of now with my brush. Oh, I've still got a few pins. Now, as well as all these ridges, there's a little dimple here, and I think I could have blocked the dimple better. I'll get into the dimple in a second. Right, what direction are we going here? We're going this way. Oh, maybe that was a little bit too wet. Do you know what? I think in some cases I've done the brush a little bit too wet. So now what I'll do is probably just leave this felt on the block until the very end of the stream, and then we'll get into how it looks on my head. In the meantime, I'll unblock some other bits. I've got 2 other hats to unblock live. Yes, the dimple could have been done so much better. I'll show you all the dimple in a second. Which way are we going? We're going this way. This is a very confusing block with like direction of brushing. And because I've done this with a fur felt, it does definitely need to have this directional brush. It's not a Melusine, but I just think it looks a bit sleeker. So here's the dimple. You see, that could have been done so much better. What I did is, you can see where I had the cord, but what I should have done is maybe taken a bit of cotton, like a cotton calico, and maybe some, like a cotton wool ball, wrapped the cotton wool ball in some calico and just stuck it into this dimple, and that would have avoided this very unsightly lot of holes. Let's see if we can get rid of them with the brushing. I don't know, these look pretty deep. Let's see. I'm just going to rounded motions, so like this, hopefully in the same direction. Okay, it's sort of working. Oh, it's kind of worked. Okay. And a quick go over with the metal brush, which I've already said I don't recommend, but sometimes to get rid of the pinholes, it's all that can work. And I'll show you the result in 1 second. Here it is. Look at that. I think you can still see a couple of holes, but we'll see how it fares when it's dried a little bit, because I think I've made it slightly too damp with some of the brushing. So now I've got to stop at some point, put it to one side, and let's unblock a different hat. Oh, now that the pins are out, it's looking really good. Next up, you will have all seen this hat block before. I just needed to block a hat because I sold out of this shape, and I think this is quite a popular shape and I want to have it on hand. Let's start by taking out the top. As you can see here, this is where I've used the much thinner silver dressmaker's pins in the cord. Hopefully that will result in much less dimples from, or holes from the pins. Let's see. I'll just very quickly take them all out. I think this is almost looking like it's okay. Let's see. I know it's the middle of, well, it's the start of spring and I'm blocking fur felts. I know it's probably not the best thing to be doing, but I've had ascot orders and I'm slightly fed up of working with silk and buckram, so I just needed to do something else. So that's why I've been blocking all of these, and I am just very curious in how the new blocks turn out, and I was sort of curious to see how this 1950s style bumper beret shape will look in a light pink, light purple colour. So I've made it for myself in black. This is very popular in white. People buy it in white and then they buy feather pom-poms to accessorize it with themselves. And I think white's quite a popular choice for that because you can pair it with anything. But again, it's a winter hat. People feel much more comfortable wearing hats when they're fur, or when they're wool felt or fur felt, and they wear them in the winter. So it's a really good entry hat for people into the world of hats. Although I want to block this in straw. I think this will look fabulous in some straw. Right, that's the top. I've taken off the string. So as you can see the string groove, but it's quite neat. I don't want to use this brush covered in green. I'm going to use the natural bristle brush, which is much easier to clean. So I'll just take all the green fluff out of this one and reuse it. It's damp enough, I think, to still work. I have to make sure there's no green on this. Yeah. And I've already given this a brush as I was blocking it. So I just have to follow and keep brushing. And that could work a little bit better. So just ever so slightly. Steam might be better here for a gentle touch, but okay, no, I'm going to have to use a metal or a nylon. Let's go for nylon. Nylon is a bit smoother than metal. So I like to have three types of brushes in my arsenal when it comes to these. That's my, oops, put that right in the way there. The natural bristle brush, which is gentle, good on everything, especially if you slightly dampen it with steam or a spray of water. Then next you have a nylon bristle brush. You can see these black bristles. They are coarser than the natural bristle, and so they are a little bit more forceful, but not as forceful as the metal bristle brush. These tend to be used for cleaning sinks and things, but I use them on hats, but very, very carefully. And I cannot stress this enough. These are meant to be used with these are meant to be used very sparingly and with a lot of care and a light touch, because if you brush too hard with a metal bristle brush, you will make a hole in your hat. And I have not had that happen to me yet, but I can see a scenario where that is possible. So I'm not going to use this on the fur felt. This is a fur felt, incidentally. Again, it's one I had lying around in my cupboard, and because I need to make this model, and I've got this one lying around, it felt like a good option. Okay, that's getting there, I think. Oh, lots of fluff. Lots of fluff. I will have to hoover after this. This is the problem with felt. It gets everywhere. It really does. I'm going to wet the nylon bristle brush ever so slightly. And not put the spray bottle in front of the camera. Right. And very light touch. very light touch, keep going round. Oh, no one told me I didn't have the music on. Or do you guys prefer live streams without music? I quite like the music. I mean, I can't hear it now, but I do sometimes watch back the live streams, and I do like them with the music. But perhaps you guys don't like the music. Do you know what? Let me know. I will put the music back on. Or maybe it's just always so quiet that you guys can never hear it, but I'm quite sensitive in hearing, so... right. I've got the thicker black enamel blocking pins in the back of the hat. This is, I like to think of them as like structural blocking pins, and then the thinner blocking pins, the dressmaker's pins, as more, let's say like a decorative, holding in the decorative aspects. So I will take out all of these black pins, and I've had to use a lot of them. Now, this hat has, this block, I should say, has always been an absolute nightmare when it comes to taking this shape off. It's one of those shapes that is, because of the bumper aspect of it, the head opening is this underside that I'm taking the pins out of. The head opening is much smaller than the outer part of the hat, and that's what makes the felt difficult to take off. And that is where the problems tend to come in. So for something like this, I'm not going to bother brushing the inside because this inside bit where you can see all the holes, I think you can see all the holes, that's going to be covered up by a wire and a bit of Petersham edging anyway, so I'm not fussed that you can see a line there from where I push down. To push down into places like that, I use a bone. This has got smooth edges everywhere. This is actually used in bookbinding. This is from my days as a graphic designer when I used to work with a lot of paper and paper folding, but this is very handy in millinery. It's got soft rounded edges, so they're not going to pierce the felt, but they're hard enough to get into the corners and push the felt in like this as you put the pins in, so it holds everything in place very well. Right, let's try and get this purple one off. Before I do that, always mark on your front and back. I say this so often, and then sometimes I forget, and then the hat isn't quite balanced, and you really have to use a good eye to find the balance. So what I'm going to do now is just put in a pin, and I will show you in a second how I've done that. There we go, that's my back. And I can, no, I should really put one into the front. No, okay, I'll just stick with the back. There we go, here's my pin in the back. It's just sticking in there and hopefully it doesn't fall out. Right, so now what I'm going to do is cut into the felt while it is still on the block, because it's this shrunken skirt that could make it difficult to get over the edge. So this is something I learnt quite recently, that it's actually easier to cut the skirt off. Some people, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to talk as I cut because I don't want to make a mistake, so you'll have to listen to the music. There we go. Right, and I do actually quite like to keep the skirts intact because you never know when you need to turn them into some kind of round decoration without any cuts in them. But I always keep the skirts, I don't throw them away because I think, firstly, that's tragic because lots of good things can come off these kind of offcuts. You never know what you might need them for. I also make a lot of hair accessories, and sometimes things like hair flowers need to be applied to a patch of felt before they can be put on a hair clip. So always hold on to these, always. Or you can make them into bows to match the hats. Right, so now let me show you the inside of this hat now that I've cut it. I've not cut it in the most neat way, but I can always neaten it up later, so I can see I've not had the best cutting line up here, but that's okay. What I'm going to do next, can you see all this cling film? That's going to help me take the hat off the block. Cling film not only protects your wooden blocks against the moisture and the heat from blocking in the first place, or from stickiness of stiffeners, it's going to help you take your felts off the blocks. Right. La Bricalou says, a student of mine did a whole research project on felt trims of the mid-20th century. That must have been amazing to read and research and look at. That sounds fantastic. Is there anywhere where we can see all this research, or is it just private to the university? Which she conjectured came out of the necessity due to austerity measures during World War II. Yes, I think that sounds like a very plausible thing. Right, anyway, I'm going to concentrate again. So here, this is a plastic bit of corset bone. You can also use things like fish knives, because they're quite flexible and not sharp. This, as long as you've got a rounded corner, so I've sanded down a corner of this, and I'm just going to hook it under the felt, make sure it's not stuck anywhere. So here I am hooking it under, and you see that? It's traveling around, and I'm doing it very gently because I don't want to distort the shape of anything, because that's the problem with these kind of rounded blocks. It's very easy to distort the shape of them. Okay. Right. Right, I've made my way around. This is always so nerve-wracking. Let's see. Can I get it off? I'm going to start with trying to pull the back out, because if the back distorts... Oh, this is always so nerve-wracking. Or maybe the front. So I don't want to stretch it. Is that already stretching it? I know I can get it back into shape with some wire. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. I have taken off wool felt hats off of blocks like this. And surprisingly, the wool felt, because it's much stiffer than fur felt, it actually keeps the shape better. But fur felt is much easier to block. I'm going to take this onto my lap and do it. Maybe from the side, because there's a... Okay, the side. No, the side's not going. I'm sorry you can't see much of this, but I really don't want to mess this up. So all I'm doing is I'm bracing it against my stomach and making sure the edges are loose. Oh... Oh, I think I ruined it. Hang on. I will be with you momentarily, everyone. Oh no, I think this can be fixed with a wire. I think this can be fixed with a wire. Maybe it will be fine. It's a little... Oh, do you know what I think has happened? I think I've pulled this felt a little too tight and it's a little thin in some places. But I'll show you what's happened on the inside in a second. I think it's salvageable with a wire and it'll be fine. So I'll explain all of that in 1 second as well. Just get rid of the block. So here it is, right? It looks, for all intents and purposes, fine on here, I think. It's okay. But this is the inside. So you can see this is the back where I've got my pin in, and that's where I had to pull it to get it off the block. Really what I think I want to do is to try and block on that block with a wool felt to see if when I take a wool felt off, it doesn't stretch as much. Because the trouble with fur felt is it's so soft, it just melts like butter, and then you pull it and it loses its shape. And in fact, maybe this can do with a little bit of stiffener, because look at how soft that is. It's a bit too soft, I think, for my liking. For a hat that's supposed to be quite structural, this might need an extra layer of stiffener, which it doesn't need to be on the block to do that. I can do that, take it off onto my balcony and just pop that on. But you can see how far this bumper edge has gone, which is a shame. But if I put in a wire that's the right size for this, for the opening, so I would measure the inside edge here for the wire, cut the wire, oops, sorry about hitting the microphone there, cut the wire, size it correctly, mark north, south, east, west on it, do the same around the edge here, and then as I hand stitch the wire in, I can pull the felt in a little bit, close that gap up and make it smaller. Let's pop it on my head. That's fine, that's still wearable, it perches. I like to wear these on the side, slightly going forwards like this. You have to imagine it with two big pom-poms right here. This is one of my favorite hats that I make. I really love this model. Okay, it's fine. It's not the best, but it is salvageable. So there it is. I will work on that probably tomorrow, because after the live stream, I really want to go for a nice long walk, because spring is here and the weather is amazing. So next up, Julia says, I occasionally encounter a few nerve-wracking moments in my professional work, so I can identify. Thank you. Yes, that's good to hear, Julia. I'm glad I'm not alone. And Julia also says, your troubleshooting and error recovery discussion is so useful. We like when things work perfectly, but they don't always. Exactly. And sometimes you just, you're dealing with the way tools are or blocks are made. And in this particular block, this bumper edge, it's actually a little too thick for my liking, and if I'd been more experienced when I'd ordered this block, I might have asked the block makers to just tone this bit down a little bit, make it a little less thick, so that it would be easier to get felts on and off, because I think that would have solved this issue. This is just a little too wide, I think, to get from here to here with the felt. This distance is too long. Anyway, next block. The one I showed at the very beginning, and I do want to start wrapping this up. Here it is. So, okay, let's talk about troubleshooting. There's a great big problem here. Can you see those holes in the felt? Here they are. This can happen when you're using a vintage felt. This is a vintage felt, and it's my fault. I didn't check the felt. I didn't do the light test. But here's the thing, even if I'd known that that was going to be there, I'm not going to not use the felt, because I needed to use it for something. So my thinking is once I get this off the block with these holes, to get some beads and to sew the beads on. And that way, I don't think it will be as noticeable. So maybe I could almost turn it into some kind of nice star motif or something, like big round gold brass beads to just go into the holes, and I think that would be fine and cover it up. So I also haven't really blocked this properly because I ran out of felt. I'll show you on the bottom. This is not blocked well. You can see that this goes in, I didn't quite pull hard enough, and so I've got a lot of creases here. But that's okay, because my thinking is I didn't actually want to use this cap in this hat model because of the holes in the felt. I want to see if I can turn this into a beret without a cap peak. So let's take it off the block and see. Oops, uh-oh, caught on my dress now. Right, I have to deal with that later. Let me get the first couple of pins out from the front. The other problem with this felt is it's vintage and it is not colour fast. I will show you. As I was blocking, I like to wear a white lab coat, like they do in the Chanel ateliers in Paris when working. And my lovely pristine white lab coat is now pink down the front because of this. And you can actually see that on my bit of cord. My cord is not white, it's now also pink. So when I potentially, whoever I gift this hat to, I will definitely have to say to them, just definitely don't wear this one in the rain, otherwise you'll end up with a pink face. So this hat block came to me from Germany. In a lot of German hat blocks are made out of a very interesting composite plaster material, which I can't quite tell exactly what it is, but someone did tell me what it is at some point and I've forgotten, but I think it's something like plaster mixed with wood chip, which makes for quite a light hat block, but it's very sturdy and you can still pin into it. So I'm taking out all of these black enamel blocking pins very, very easily because they went in very, very easily. But I do use a mini hammer when blocking. I'm not going to tell you that there's a right or wrong way of blocking. Some professional old school milliners will say you should just use a thimble and push as hard as you can. I say protect your delicate hands, and if there's a tool, why not use it? So that's just a mini hammer which you can get from lots of different hardware shops. Right, that's all the pins out. I'm going to mark my back with a pin. Sometimes I like to mark the front and back, not necessarily with pins, but with full-on needle and thread and just sew a knot in. But for all intents and purposes today, I'm just going to pop a pin into it. Right, this should just come out. Let's see. Let's see. It doesn't look like it's a complex shape. It's not bulbous as such. I'm just going to hook underneath with my thumbs and try and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Okay, I'm gonna have to do it on my lap again. Didn't quite set the cameras up right, did I, for this? Don't want to dent it. Okay. Okay. Cap comes off first. Aha, from the front. From the front. No, is it stuck on the cling film? Come on, cling film. Using the corset bone, it feels like it's stuck in some places. No, that's going. So that should come off. Oh, I see where it's stuck. It's stuck on the other side. Right. Is it stuck on the front? Yes, it's also stuck on the front. Oh, my arm is getting tired. Okay. This is why I prefer puzzle blocks. There we go. Right, it's a bit dented in places as well. We'll look at the block in a second. I'm just going to quickly try and put it back to how it should be. Hold that underneath. Okay, right, well, here is the shape. Let's change camera views. This one. Okay, let's put it on. It does look rather sweet. Feels a bit like a horse riding helmet. Ooh. Oh, my hair's getting stuck in the pin. Okay, it is very cute. It feels a bit lopsided. I think, well, the block, like looking at the block is a little lopsided too. Here it is. So from the front, which camera? This camera. From the front, you can see it kind of leans more to one side than the other, which almost makes me think maybe it's designed to be worn at a bit of an angle. Oh. Maybe up a bit. No, wait. Maybe something a bit more like this. It's cute, isn't it? It's nice. It's not a shape that I would wear, but I do think it's quite sellable. It definitely looks like a late 60s shape to me, again, with this whole bulbous thing going on top. I think this would look fabulous in some straw. I really like the idea of all these bulbous beret type shapes in straw. What I want to do is cut off this peak because I think it will look nicer. Let's see if I can fold it away first. I think it will just look better as a beret. Let's see. So all I'm doing is I used that line that it was on. It doesn't look pretty from the inside, but we'll deal with that later. There we go. Okay, it did kind of look better with the peak. What do you guys think? I don't have enough felt for the peak on this particular run, but I don't think it's too bad. Like it could go, ooh, oh, that looks nice. Oh, I like that. I like that coming forwards. Yes, wonderful. Look at that. Yeah, Amoria says keep the peak. I think you're right. Unfortunately, I can't on this one because I ran out of felt to stretch over it because I didn't use a big enough hood. But it'll do. It'll do. Maybe if I add... Oh, well, here's a thought. With all of this, you can see it here, the little rips. Let's make that the back. We can make those rips the back, so something like this. And then onto the back, I could keep the offcuts from this and make a bow like this to cover up the rips in the felt. That's an idea. I think that could work. It is definitely better with the peak, the way it was designed, but we've got to work with what we have. So that's another thing I'll be working on. So there we go, blocking on this composite material. I have in the past seen a lot of hat blocks go on sale from Germany in this composite material, and I have been nervous about purchasing them in the past because I'd never seen them up close. But actually, it's pretty great, actually. I think definitely hat blocks to look out for. They do tend to be painted in this kind of cream yellow colour. And on the inside, let's change cameras. On the inside, this is what they look like. You can see it's quite rough under this spoke. You stick this spoke into your spinner or your hat block spool, whatever it's called. I forgot what it's called. I'm getting tired now. We've got one more hat to unblock, and then I definitely need to rest my voice. Right. Next hat. I will take this one off because it is a fur felt and it is warm. Right. But here's the thing, right, with the hat that I've just shown you all, and the way that I plan to use the block slightly differently to what it was intended, I actually quite enjoy doing that. I'm not a person who creatively likes being told that I can only do things one way. I like to see how far I can push the equipment and the blocks that I've got, so I tend to find other ways of using blocks anyway. Right. Last block. This one, or the one we started with. It's yes, it's dry enough. In case you've never heard of this before, it's called I call it the cheek test. It's, if you're not sure if a block is dry, I get asked this question a lot. So this is for all of you who always ask the question, how do you know when your hat is dry to take off the block? If you're unsure, leave it on for another day. If you are sure, then you can test it with your cheek. If you touch your cheek to the felt and it feels cold, that means it's still wet. If you can't feel anything, that means it's dry. So I've just felt it with my cheek without getting makeup on it. And it feels dry enough to me. So I'm going to turn it upside down. I've got, oh, it's dark, so it's difficult to see this one. I've got the black blocking pins underneath here. And this is going to be another one of those that I think I get the scissors out and I cut into to take the skirt off. And again, this hasn't been my best blocking skills. I haven't brought my best blocking skills to the table here. I will show you in a second what's going on underneath here. I've got a lot of folds in the felt, which is not good. But I was reusing this hood, had previously been blocked to make something else, so I didn't have a lot of hood to work with. That's why there's more skirt on one side than the other. There were giant rips in it, like this rip here, so I wanted to try and avoid using those. But you can see all these folds across the edge over here. That's not great, but it's okay. I'm not selling this hat. This is for me, or maybe I'll gift it to someone who I know, but I wouldn't be able to sell this one. Right, I'm going to get the scissors and go along the edge, just like I did with the purple one. I'm going to do it while it's on my lap. There we go. So I wasn't able to get it off as a skirt, but I did just show you that giant rip in it, so that's why. Keep the offcuts. And this is what it looks like now on the inside. So you can see a little bit better the bumps in my blocking here. That's not great. Ideally, to get rid of those, I would have pulled a bit more, pulled kind of forwards and under, and really worked the felt in with my fingers, but never mind. Right, I will try and get this off the block now. This one shouldn't be too difficult to get off. I'll use the bone again. And after I get this off, we will end the stream. So bear with me, everyone. We're almost done. And we have, I think, slightly run over time. Yes, by 6 minutes. Okay, but I don't want to rush. Right, I'll go from the back, I think. Oh. Always mark on your front and back. So I will get my pin, and if you don't know how to tell the back and front of a block, usually there's a great big X carved into usually the back of the block. So I'll show you that on this block in a second once I take it off. Again, this fur felt, it just stretches. It's not my favourite working with fur felt. I do actually have a preference for working with wool felt. I think it's while it can be more difficult to block, I think it's more forgiving, because I think fur felt is, while it is a little more luxurious, it can be it's easier to mess up, I think. It's just softer. There we go, that came out. Okay, that was the best block release today, I think. Hooray. Right, let me show you that X on the bottom of the block. Where is it? Ah, here it is. So I would say that this is probably the back, but again, it's up to you. You are the owner of the block doesn't own you. If you look at this X and you think, actually, do you know what, objectively, I think this hat looks better if this was the front, then you do that. It's your hat. It's your block. Right. It's a really cool block, isn't it? I don't like that it's been painted. I feel like when blocks are painted, it's trying to cover something up. So I wanted to block on it to see the shape, to see how worthwhile it is restoring. And now that I get to try it on, we can see if it looks like it's worth restoring. Right, so this is my pin, that's the back. It's going to get caught in my hair again. Let's see. You see, so do you remember I was saying about the white hat with the curved bottom? That's what this has here. This is this wonderful curve. I think that's so great. That's exactly what I've been looking for in blocks. Oh, that's nice. What do you guys think? It obviously doesn't go with what I'm wearing. It's definitely a winter hat. It's quite beehivey. Do you see how this curve on the side is absolutely beautiful? Look at that. It's stunning, isn't it? I do love this. Yes, this is definitely a winner. In fact, I wonder if I could block on that block without putting in the all the cords that I did into the grooves. It might almost have that bulbous helmet shape without the grooves. That's something that I'm going to try. And the colour is great, isn't it? Thanks, Lottie. It is a great colour. Right, I might have missed some comments in the chat. I'm sorry, everyone. I've been really concentrating on not messing up unblocking these. Oh, I really like this hat. I'm getting very distracted just looking at at myself on the camera reflection and enjoying how this looks. Right, well, I think it's time to wrap up the stream. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. It's wonderful to be back here with a camera in front of me talking to you guys. If you'd like to talk to me more, I have a Patreon at Byalona Millinery. I'm pretty much Byalona Millinery across the social media platforms that I use. So check that out in the description box if you want to find me in other places. Congratulations to Caroline and Anissa for your first and second place win in my hat block giveaway competition. maybe in the future I'll do more giveaways. We'll see. I have now got to go and figure out how to send items overseas. That'll be fun. I've loved chatting to all of you in the chat today. It's been wonderful, and I hope you've enjoyed today's stream. As a quick reminder, we had a look at some vintage hats. I unboxed a very cool light from IKEA. What else did we do? Oh, we then unblocked, and we spoke a little bit also about changing the sizes of hats. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing my videos, and sharing in my joy of millinery. I hope you all wear lots of hats and generally have fun making them. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.